All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 7 recap. Apparently, my facial gestures and all of that was being scrutinized and analyzed a little bit too intently last week. So I've got to disguise myself, keep my secrets in here, close these windows. So it's a little unnerving, but I mean, it is what it is. I put myself out here on display for you to analyze. I mean, I'm sure you all wish you could go to the Wizarding University, the Wizarding Academy, I believe is the proper term. So anyway, it's also Halloween, so I guess this is kind of like a disguise. But anyway, this week you do not see, I will not reveal my secrets through these windows. Anyway, I don't know how long this is actually going to work because my glasses are fogged up and I can't see the screen as of right now. So, unless I turn my head like this, and then I can see the screen. Anyway, what happened in week 7? A lot of people really, we had the top 4 teams all play each other, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. So nobody really moved too much. So people, let's see, look at the standings here. Let's see, actually, the Dubsy Hooligans were number 4. They have dropped down to, let's see, 6. So not too bad with your loss this week. So nothing too bad there. The top 4 kind of changed a little bit. I believe it is Possum Magic moving up into the number 4 spot there. So, injuries, obviously Justin lost Odell Beckham Jr. this week for the season. Got another guy who just can't seem to stay healthy, which is so unfortunate because the guy is an electric player when he's on the field, does great things, but his career has just been wrecked by injuries over the last few years. So much potential, but just can't seem to keep it all together. This first couple of years, when he was with the Giants in the league, I think he did have some injuries. So he came into the league with injuries because that's why he was so late in the draft that first year. And the guy, unfortunately, when he's on the field, he's been electric for the most part. But unfortunately, perhaps his career is just going to be derailed. What could be a spectacular career, derailed by just constant injuries. Really unfortunate to see. Unfortunate for Darkwing Jet. So I think that was the only real major injury this week that is going to affect the league going forward. Darkwing Jet, they did get the win this week, but things are looking maybe a little difficult going forward here for you. So we'll see what happens as you hopefully are hoping to not slide down the standings. And as I've already talked about, I think the 3 of the 6 playoff spots are fairly in play or taken. So, well, 3 are taken, 3 are in play at this point in time. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7, at least 6 or 7 teams fighting for those last 3 spots, assuming, again, that the Isotopes, Yinzer Jags, and From Gags to Riches, teams with 7, 6, and 5 victories already, assuming they're going to make it at this point. So that leaves 3 spots for all the rest of you to fight over. So every victory, every point from here going forward is important. We got a lot of bye week things going on, so things are going to get tricky. No real COVID issues this week, so that was nice. But other than that, yeah, there isn't really too much to talk about. Too much else to talk about from week 7. So let's get right into the matchups. As always, we start with the defending champion from Gags to Riches. He was the number 3, I believe, going up against the number 2 in the standings, Yinzer Jags. It was 2 versus 3, I believe, and despite the results of this matchup, neither one moves any places. Although Gags to Riches, he loses this matchup and falls 1 game behind Yinzer Jags, but their positions did not change. They are both still 2nd and 3rd. Yinzer Jags goes off this week for 237 points, mostly behind Kyler Murray and Devontae Adams, while from Gags to Riches puts up 161.15. For Yinzer Jags, again, Kyler Murray, he goes for 76.5 points in that crazy shootout versus Seattle. His wide receivers, Cooper, Boyd, and Adams. Cooper goes for 15.5. Tyler Boyd pops off for almost 29. While, speaking of popping off, Devontae Adams, he goes for 47.5 points this week. What did he have in week 1? He actually topped his week 1 when he had 44.6. So when he is in the games and healthy, other than last week's debacle at Tampa Bay, he's going for 40 plus. He is the only player Aaron Rodgers seems to want to throw the ball to. I'm not sure that is a long-term recipe for success, but we will see how things play out here. Yinzer Jags running backs, James White and Latavius Murray, 1.3 and 6.6. Kittle, only 10.5. In the flex, he played Boston Scott on Thursday night there as a plug-and-play for some, I think because Miles Sanders was out. Not sure if you had any other bye week issues there. Adam Thielen was out. Sammy Watkins was out. So Mostert was out. So you needed somebody to plug in there in the flex spot, and you went with Scott, and he did score a late receiving touchdown in that game because I believe the Eagles were down pretty big, and they actually came back and won that game at the end. 18.2, pretty good score for a plug and play there. Butker, your kicker, goes for about 12.5, maybe 13. And then the Cleveland Browns defense against Cincinnati. Let's see. Joe Burrow was clearly not running for his life in this game, but they had a couple turnovers. Looks like the actual score, Yahoo says 10. I'm going to guess it was about 19 from your Cleveland Browns defense there. But yeah, that's 76 and 47. That's already over 110, 120 almost, to put you, right on track to be over 200 points this week, which is tough for anybody to keep up with. Unfortunately, Gags to Riches, he wasn't able to do it this week. He had Deshaun Watson go for just under 60. His receivers, Julio, Tyreek, and Mike Evans, 17.5, 17.5, and 5.5 respectively. Running backs, Montgomery and Ronald Jones. Montgomery just under 12, and Jones 10.5. Kelsey only 6.1. Tyreek said he had a late touchdown in that game there. Wasn't a lot of offensive action in that game in Denver because a lot of snow. It wasn't a competitive game because the Chiefs defense scored a touchdown. They had a kick return touchdown. And the final score, Denver only ended up putting up 16 points while Kansas City had 43. So, fortunately for Yinzer Jags, his Gags Chiefs there didn't have to do too much this week, and they only combined for 23.5 points there. Probably the lowest score, one of the lowest scores you'll ever get from Travis Kelce. In the flex, Traquan Smith, since Michael Thomas was out again, Emmanuel Sanders out also with COVID problems. Oh, I'm losing my coverage here. Don't want you to see anything. Can't give away any of my secrets. 9.5 points for Traquan Smith. Gano at kicker, since Tucker was on the bye, he goes for 3 points. And then your Chargers defense versus Jacksonville. Yahoo says 8. Looks like the actual total was about, we bumped you up about 10 or 12. So probably about 19 or 20 points. But yeah, not much gags to riches you can do in this one. 161 points. Pretty average for this week. Other than the 3 teams who went over 200, scores were right in that 160-ish, 100 point, that barrier. Kind of down as they've been the past few weeks. And other than, of course, the 3 teams who went over 200. But all the other scores were pretty close to each other, said around 160-ish in that ballpark there, which is kind of where we have been for the past 2 or 3 weeks there. But unfortunately for Gags to Riches, he ran into one of those 200-point scores. He gets the loss. He's 5-2. Although, again, like I said, he did not move any position down any positions in the standings here. You're still in 3rd place. 5-2, sitting pretty. While User Jags, he is 6-1, still in 2nd place, and getting both of you guys inching very close to clinching playoff spots there. So let's just go, as I always say, right down the line. Springfield Isotopes versus Dub C Hooligans. Right down the line, obviously on my computer, and you can see my hand you can see it twice in this picture. Is that creepy? Wait, there we go. You can see my hand. Well, am I high right now? I don't think so, but anyway, I digress. Springfield Isotopes. So the order on my computer obviously starts with me because it's my team that I'm logged into here. So, and when I say I go right down the line. All right, Isotopes versus Dub C Hooligans. Very similar to Gags to Riches here. Dub C goes for 161.6, but he ran into the Isotopes, one of the other 200-point scorers this week. The Isotopes go for 219.5 and get the victory over Dub C to stay undefeated. Let's see. For the Isotopes, we have Matt Ryan. He goes for just under 55. DeAndre Hopkins, 24.5. Ridley, just under 20. Deontay Johnson, an even 20. Alvin Kamara, just under 23. A.J. Dillon, since there was no Aaron Jones this week, thought maybe he would get a little bit more carries in the second half there, possibly punching a touchdown. When the game did go, again, like I said on the lineup, the way that I kind of thought that it would, that the Packers would jump out to a big lead and be able, the second half would be mostly kind of garbage time with them trying to hold on to the lead, Texans trying to come back, and that is basically how it played out. And I really thought that they would take this opportunity, being comfortably ahead, to give Dillon more carries, more experience, game time experience, since he is a rookie. But that did not play out that way, unfortunately for me. Unfortunately, it did not play out that way, but fortunately, it did not make a difference in the result of this matchup. Fant at tight end goes for 6.8. T. Higgins in the flex, 18.8. Kicker Suckup goes for about 8.5. And then the Buffalo Bills defense, Yahoo says 18, but I believe the actual score was about 31, 32, something like that. So good scores from the Buns there. Matt Ryan and Buffalo Bills, about 100 points from them. And then some solid scores from the wide receivers. The 4 started wide receivers and Kamara there, so getting not too far over 200, but enough to get past Dub C Hooligans this week, who put up, said 161.6. He had Russell Wilson go for 66.8. Big game from him in that Seattle Arizona game that was pretty crazy back and forth. Said fortunately this matchup wasn't close enough that his 66 made me worry too much watching that game. Not that I don't like to laugh about it, but said fortunately because the stress of watching something like that is it's thrilling, it's fun, but it's also unpleasant at the same time there. So unnerving, perhaps, is the better word. His receivers, Dub C, has Allen Robinson, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Chark. since there was no Crowder this week. Robinson goes for 11. Anderson, 13.5. Chark, only 3.5. Big scorer for you here, besides Russell Wilson, was James Robinson from the Jaguars here. He had a couple touchdowns, over 100 yards, 34.7 points. Edwards-Helaire goes for 13.5. Schultz, your tight end, 4.2. Davis in the flex. Perhaps this will be the last week. 8.5 points from him there in the flex, I should say. 5 of those points from catches and receiving yards. Most of those stats from receiving there. But I think since they play Thursday this week, Carolina Panthers, you might have one more week of Mike Davis. But I'm pretty sure McCaffrey is on his way back sooner rather than later. So Mike Davis might not be quite as relevant for you going forward. But you've got Gaskin on the bench there to plug in. His bye was this week, so he should be automatic play every week for you going from here on out. And we'll see what you do with the health of Crowder there. But yeah. Oh, well, almost forgetting the last two pieces of Dub C Hooligans. His kicker, Koo from Atlanta, who he likes to talk about and talk up. He only kicks 2 extra points this week, gets you 2 points. And your 2 defenses played against each other, and you chose the wrong one, as you went with the New England Patriots, who got blown out by the San Francisco 49ers, the defense that you traded for as a keeper. I know it was in San Francisco, but the Patriots just are not the same team that they were in previous years, especially their defense, who had a lot of opt-outs, as we know, from COVID this year. So, let's see. Yahoo says 7. The actual score was 4. Because you were the one team I actually had to dock points from their Dub C Hooligans this week. So, I believe Yahoo's score actually would have been correct, but except for the -3 for them losing the game here. I did not actually figure out what San Francisco's defensive score would have been. Yahoo says 23, so it's probably up in the low 40s would be my guess, because the Patriots didn't really do much at all on offense. So even if that would have happened, so let's say we add 35 points to your score, that takes you up into the 190s, makes this matchup a little bit closer, but again, even if you had made the correct move with your defenses, which is easy to say in hindsight, obviously, but it would not have made a difference in the outcome of the matchup. But any extra points you can get, as you are one of the teams who looks like they will be fighting for a playoff spot as we move closer to the end of the season there. Every point you can get is valuable, because who knows, it might be what some one or two playoff spots come down to. If your records are similar, your point totals will come into play there. All right, anyway, with that loss, the Dub C Hooligans, I believe he's lost a couple games in a row. He's slid down to, I don't know if he was 3-1, but he was definitely 3-2, but he is now 3-4. But he's still in 6th place in the playoff hunt for sure, while the Isotopes remain undefeated. They are 7-0. And they are in 1st place. We will see. Not too optimistic about that lasting much longer. So, let's see. Saquon, 8 so versus Shawshank Athletics. This one, a bit of a yawner, as there were no real big breakouts in this matchup, except perhaps A.J. Brown on the losing side here for Shawshank Athletics. Saquon at 8 so gets the victory, 163.45, so another 63 point score. Shawshank gets 146.85. All right, Saquon at 8 so. No Saquon, no Dak, no problem. He's still getting some victories here. Drew Brees goes for 55.55. Juju, Edelman, and Corey Davis, your receivers. 17.5, 2.5, 15.5, respectively. James Conner goes for 14, a little over 14. Darrell Henderson, the Rams running back, he goes for just over 9.5 points. Another disappointing game from Jonnu Smith. Not sure if he's still, if he had some injury problems there, but that was a high-scoring game for the Steelers and Titans there. But unfortunately, only 2 points from Smith this week. Richard Rodgers was a plug-and-play in the flex here from the Thursday night game. He actually went for 14.5 points since no Ertz, no Goddard, and Wentz does like to throw his tight end to his tight ends. So this actually ended up being a pretty good play for Saquon. It ain't so. No faith in Tanyan, I guess, who you spent $100 or so fab dollars on earlier this year. Let's see. Your bench, you got Landry, Golden Tate, so you got some injury problems here, some bye week issues. But yeah, you still, Saquon today, so still gets the victory, knocking off Shawshank Athletics, making his playoff hopes a little bit harder. For Shawshank, I feel a little bit bad getting into this matchup because I was this close, Josh, to saying to you on the Line app, I understand that you're pretty invested in the passing game of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I think you are crazy if you play Minshew over Herbert, just because Herbert has been lights out this year. I mean, I understand. That was my personal opinion before the game. I almost said to you, you're crazy for not playing him, starting Minshew. But I can understand because, again, you are starting Keelan Cole, you're starting Shenault, so you are extremely invested on top of Minshew in that Jaguars passing attack. But Minshew, he only goes for 35 points. Keelan Cole, 2.2, and Shenault, 7.4. Gardner Minshew actually had 0 points until halfway through the second quarter or something like that. I couldn't believe. I thought did he get hurt or something like that? I had to look at the game and see what was going on there. But then he kind of got it going a little bit at the end of the first half there, but he still ended up with only 14 completions, under 200 yards there. But your other receivers, Debo goes for 12.2 before suffering a hamstring injury, and I believe he's going to be out for a little while here. Your other wide receiver said Cole was 2.2. A.J. Brown, he actually had a long touchdown, so the actual score here was 33.3. Todd Gurley goes for 22.2. Your other running back who got hurt in the game, Devontae Freeman, only 0.8 for you there. So unfortunately, let's see, the difference here in this matchup was about 17 points. So is that 1 point from Freeman definitely hurts. Cole only getting you 2. This matchup definitely could have gone the other way. Ingram in the flex there, or tight end, I should say, since no Mark Andrews, only 11 points. Well, 11 points isn't too bad from Evan Ingram. But again, as we know, you had Andrews on the bench because he was on bye. He was definitely able at any time to pop off and get you those necessary points. Shenault in the flex again, 7.5 points. Gostowski, he missed that field goal at the end of the game there. That could have been a few extra points. Let's see, he goes for about 7.5. And then the Saints defense against Carolina, Yahoo says 4. But based on the bump there, the actual score must have been about, 16, 18, something like that. So yeah, but just taking a quick look down at Shawshank's bench here. Not to pour salt in your wound here, Josh, but Herbert went for almost 72 points this week. Actually, might have been, 72, might have been 75. I'm not sure if he had I know he had a long, I don't know if it was a long enough touchdown to whoever it was. I can't even think of the guy's name. Let's see if it says anything on here. He had a long, I don't know if it was 65 yards plus, but he did have a pretty long touchdown there. Anyway, again, but yeah, Herbert outscored Minshew by 35, 36 points there, which would have gotten you the victory in this matchup. I would imagine it's safe to assume that you will be starting Minshew, or not Minshew. You will be benching Minshew and starting Herbert from here on out is my assumption. So we will see. But yeah, unfortunately, for Shawshank Athletics, with this loss, which could have been a victory, he drops to 2-5, getting closer to number 7 in terms of losses there, which is where you don't want to get to. He is in 10th place, while Saquon It Ain't So moves up to 3-4. He is in 7th place. Darkwing Jut versus Hillbillies on PCP comes up next. This was our only matchup that came down to Monday night. Hold on here. Gotta make sure I'm properly covered. There we go. Keep sliding down a little bit here. Anyway, this one came down to Monday night. Darkwing Jut was actually down by about 28 points or so to Hillbillies on PCP, who was finished. His score was only 139.1, and Darkwing Jut was about 111 point something like that. So he needed 28 or so points. He had Robert Woods, and he had the Rams defense. And the Rams defense actually by themselves were able to cover that spread. Fortunately for Darkwing Jut, because he only got 5.5 points from Robert Woods. Darkwing Jut's final score ends up being 147.9. He has Teddy Bridgewater go for 45, just under 45 actually. I stand corrected. He gets 47.7 because he had a long touchdown to also Darkwing Jut's DJ Moore. So his actual score was 28.3. So Bridgewater 47.7, DJ Moore 28.3. So you got +6 from that long touchdown connection there. Again, Odell Beckham Jr. goes for 0. Nothing. He did not have anything before he got injured there. Again, Woods 5.5. Your running backs, Kenyon Drake and Singletary, just over 5 for Drake, 6.5 for Singletary. Greg Olsen this week, since no Gesicki, needed a plug and play at tight end. 3.8 from Olsen. Not a bad play considering the way that Seahawks Cardinals game went back and forth, points and yards all over the place. Thought Greg Olsen wasn't a bad play. Surprised he didn't get a little bit more action. But as we will get to, it was for Seattle, it was the Tyler Lockett show, basically. Swift in your flex goes for almost 15. Crosby, your kicker, goes for 5. And again, the Rams defense, you needed 28. They got you 31, I believe, was the actual total there. But again, enough to take down Hillbillies on PCP this week. Hillbillies had Roethlisberger. He goes for 44.5. Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, and Fulgham. 22.5 for Allen, 4.5 for Metcalf. Only 2 catches for him in that game, kind of surprising. Fulgham goes for 12.3. Your running backs, Jacobs in a tough matchup against Tampa Bay. He only had 17 rushing yards, 14 receiving yards, 3 catches. He goes for 6.1. Le'Veon Bell, you were excited to play him this week. He only got you 4 points. Hawkinson, tight end, he won the game there for his own team, the Detroit Lions, with 16.9 points and that touchdown at the very end of the game. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get the victory for the Hillbillies on PCP. In the flex, you played Slayton from the Giants, only 4.5 points from him. Let's take a quick look at your bench and see if, no, there was nothing you could have done differently to change the outcome of this matchup. Looking at your bench there, Hillbillies on PCP. Zerline, your kicker, only 1 field goal. So about 4.5 points. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers defense gave up a lot of yards. Yahoo says 5, but you're bumped up about 16 there. So the actual score must have been about 20 or 21. Not too bad, but not enough to get you past Darkwing Jet this week. His defense had got 31 and pushed him ahead there on Monday night. With his victory, Darkwing Jet, he moves up to 4-3. He is in 5th place, while the Hillbillies on PCP, they drop their 5th game. They are 2-5, and they are in 9th place. Next, we had Disco versus Ed Logger. Kind of another snooze fest in this matchup. No big action here from either team. Pretty average scores. But Disco gets the victory this week. Another 160-ish, 164.3 versus 139.5 for Ed Logger. What was Hillbillies? Two Hillbillies had 139.1. Ed Logger 139.5. So almost identical scores there. Again, for these two teams, just like Dub C and Gags to Riches there. So, but anyway, Disco gets the victory. Let's take a look at his lineup. He had Patrick Mahomes, only 29 points there, again in that snow game. Chris Godwin, 9 catches, a touchdown there. Pretty good score, 23.8. Galladay, 17.5. Claypool, only 1 catch for -2. So he actually got you less than 1 point. Antonio Gibson, good game against Dallas. Everybody's going to have a good game against Dallas. 21.8. Gio Bernard in for the injured Mixon. 20.5 points. Waller in your tight end spot. He goes for 17. Zeke in the flex, only 6. Carlson, your kicker, goes for about 9.5, 10 points. And then the Tampa Bay defense, probably your defense here for the rest of the year, I would assume, except for their bye week. Let's see, Yahoo says 12. You're bumped up about 7 or 8 points there. So the actual score for the Tampa Bay defense must have been about 18 or so would be my guess. So not too bad. Enough to get past Ed Logger this week, who has his quarterback going up against Ed Logger had his quarterback and one of his receivers going up against Disco's defense, but Disco's defense comes out, I guess, on top in most ways, even though Derek Carr did put up 45 points. Much better than Disco's Mahomes with 29 there just this week. But unfortunately for Ed Logger, he had Ruggs in his lineup. He only went for 6.5 points. Cooper Kupp, 12 points. Callaway, a plug-and-play since no Michael Thomas or, Traquan Smith is no longer on your team, and Emmanuel Sanders was out too. Actually, 15.5 points for Callaway, pretty good score, but I believe he got injured somewhat point in that game. We'll see if he's available for you, or if Michael Thomas comes back sometime soon here. Might be too little too late for Ed Logger. We'll see how things play out in the coming weeks here. His running backs, Kareem Hunt, 19.2. David Johnson, 16.5. Your tight end, not Johnny Smith. The other one, Ferkser from Tennessee. He goes for 2.5 points there. Taking a look at your bench to see why you started that guy. You've got Zach Ertz in your IR spot, and Austin Hooper was out this week after, I believe, an appendectomy. So didn't really see that coming, but you had to pick up and play a tight end this week. We'll see what happens with Hooper in the weeks coming up here. If he's back, we'll see how much time he misses there. So, or else you'll have to make a play here for a tight end this evening on the waivers here. Ed Logger has McKinnon, even no Mostert this week, but McKinnon somehow only goes for -1 rushing yard. It was all Jeff Wilson this week, who I was this close to dropping Dylan for also. Before that game started, trying to think, the Packers game there wasn't back and forth between. Um, when I was scouring the waiver wire, I won't bore you with the details. Obviously, Jeff Wilson was someone considering. Decided to go with Dylan. And Jeff Wilson would be the hottest commodity on the waiver wire later this evening because he went for he had 3 touchdowns. I don't know exactly what his fantasy total was, but he suffered a high ankle sprain, and he is now going to be out for about a month, which means Mostert will probably be back before him. So that pretty much his big game this week against the Patriots benefited nobody, and the injury at the end there would unfortunately, because it would have been interesting to see how the bidding played out on him later this evening when he clears waivers there. So maybe somebody will pick him up and throw him on the IR. I don't know, but you'll be hearing it'll already have happened probably by the time any of you hear this. So we will see what happens, but I expect that the same injury as Mostert, so I would imagine that Mostert will be back before Jeff Wilson, and thus making him mostly irrelevant again. But surprisingly, said McKinnon, seemed like a good play. Those 2 guys with Mostert out, somehow he only rushed for -1 yard. So he actually lost you points here. McManus, he couldn't pull through for you this week. Let's see. He had a couple kicks there. He missed one, only about 4.5 points. And then the Packers defense did pretty well. Yahoo says 12. Actual score must have been about 18. Not a bad defensive score here. But yeah, that -1. Let's see, you lost by about 25 points. So let's see, you would have liked more from Ruggs. So not bad scores from Callaway, Hunt, Johnson. But yeah, your tight end spot and your flex there, those ones really hurt you this week, and having Ruggs. But looking at your bench here, really not much you could have done. Maybe Shepard in instead of Ruggs. But he was coming off an injury, so who knows exactly how he was going to get played. But yeah, unfortunately, some bye week problems, injury problems. Again, Michael Thomas, another injury for him. The surprise with Austin Hooper being out. Jackson and Marquise Brown on bye this week. There really wasn't much that Ed Logger you could have done in terms of your starting lineup this week that would have changed the outcome of this matchup. So Disco with the victory, he's 3-4, while Ed Logger falls to 2-5. Disco is in 8th place, while Ed Logger drops to 11th place. And finally, the last matchup, the last 200-point score, we have Possum Magic going up against the Mighty Midgets. And the bad luck continues for Mighty Midgets this week. Possum Magic, he goes for 218.8. The Mighty Midgets, 173.05. And again, mentioned on the lineup this week, Mighty Midgets, you would have beaten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. 8 teams you would have beaten this week. Only 3 you would not have, and you played one of those 3 teams, unfortunately. And this was a week where you needed a win because you are now 1-6. You are in 12th place. Your playoff hopes are on life support. You're down, but you're not out. So, want to say anything can happen, but as the weeks go by and you only have 1 victory, you have a long, difficult, if not impossible, I won't say it's impossible, road ahead, but things need to turn around for you very quickly. And this week could have been one of those, but unfortunately, it was not. Early this season, as we know, the Mighty Midgets suffered 2 very close losses the first 2 weeks of the year. So this whole season could have gone very differently, if not for just plain old bad luck for the Mighty Midgets here. But what can you do? Such is the way of fantasy football. Possum Magic, let's see. He has Tannehill go for 37.5. Scary Terry, 22. Diggs, 10.5. Patrick, the Broncos wide receiver, 7.5. Derrick Henry against the Steelers, 15.2. Not too bad, but kind of a low score for Derrick Henry there. Carson, only 5 points in that game. He got hurt and missed a lot of time there. Perhaps that was why Russell Wilson was throwing so much. But that benefit, it didn't really hurt Possum Magic in this matchup. His tight end, Hurst, goes for 12.8. But the big one here in the flex, Tyler Lockett, 15 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 56 points for Lockett this week. And gotta say, I know we've seen Tyler Lockett make some incredible catches, some sideline toe tappers in the past. But this week, he made some incredible catches. Gotta give props where props are due. The first play of the game, I think, was a long pass to Lockett. He is completely, you couldn't have played defense any better on him, but he reached out with one hand, pulled it in, made that long catch, and that was pretty much how the rest of the game was going to go. His one touchdown was, I think it'll be the featured photo here. Just, again, you can't cover the guy any better than he did, and he caught it, just came over and caught it in the end zone there. But I believe it was the last touchdown, which he got both feet down. They called it a touchdown, and then they said no, but then they reviewed it. I think the Seahawks challenged it, and he did get his toes down. It's so close to the line there. And it's happening so fast. I could go on about it again. Just how I can't say enough how impressive that catches are. Again, being so close and moving so fast that it happens bang bang. That you're able to do that. The talent and skill required to do that is just unbelievable. So my hats off, if I could take it off right now, to Tyler Lockett, not just on the performance, but just on the quality and difficulty of those catches. My goodness. Bullock, your kicker, goes for about 10 points. And then the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Already talked about them briefly because they had a turnover. They had a pick six. They had a long touchdown kickoff return. Let's see. They had 4 turnovers and a touchdown. Yahoo says 33. We bumped you up a few points there. The actual score must have been actually closer to 40. I'm going to say 39, perhaps there. But yeah, the big one here. Practically a quarterback score from Lockett this week. His 56. Said 40 from your defense there. That's almost 100. So the rest of you guys pretty much just had to show up and do okay to get you over 200. And they did this week. Unfortunately for Mighty Midgets, let's see, he had Tom Brady. Tom Brady goes for 76.5 points. That's got to be his highest total of the season. Yes, pretty much by far. He had one 68-pointer early on, but he was in, let's see, he's at 40, 43, 32, 51, 68, 41, 33, and now 76. So, but it wasn't enough to help Mighty Midgets get past Possum Magic this week. His wide receivers, Lamb, Humphreys, and A.J. Green. Surprisingly, A.J. Green was by far the most productive wide receiver of this trio, as he went for 15.2. Humphreys only 1 catch, 2.9. And CeeDee Lamb, only 1 rushing yard, 0.1. How does that happen? Is Andy Dalton that bad? Maybe he is. Jackson, your running backs. Backup City, Jackson, and Jamal Williams. 10.5 for Jackson, 21.5 for Jamal Williams. Jimmy Graham in the tight end spot, 8.1. Brandon Cooks in the flex, 13. Robbie Gould about 9.5. And then the Chicago Bears defense, I believe Yahoo was actually correct here. 16 was the correct score because we only had to adjust your points for your kicker there. But I want to say they must have taken away a sack because the game was... Oh, so I did the scores there very, very soon after the game ended. And I would have sworn that your defensive score for Chicago was 17. Not that this makes any difference, really. So I would have sworn it was 17. But then a few minutes later, a few clicks later, looking around, figuring things out, your point. I had your point total written down as 174.05, but then it had changed to 173.05. So I believe the Bears defense had an extra sack that they did not were credited for it and had taken away. Whatever it was, I believe that was the difference. Whatever happened there, I believe they must have had a sack taken away. But yeah, it didn't make a difference here. And the score is still the same. So 173.05 for the Mighty Midgets. Again, unfortunately, he gets the loss here. He drops to 1-6. He is in 12th place. While Possum Magic, he moves up to 4-3 and all the way up to 4th place. After having a rough start, Possum Magic, a team on the rise to watch out for here. I don't know if I mentioned it already. This week's knockout is the Hillbillies on PCP with that 139 score. Take a look here at my list here. Teams that have been already eliminated. Saquon and Ain't So, Shawshank Athletics, Ed Lager, Disco, Mighty Midgets, Darkwing Jet, and now Hillbillies on PCP. So we got 5 teams left in the knockout pool. Springfield Isotopes, Dub C Hooligans, From Gags to Riches, Possum Magic, and Yinzer Jags. So, yeah. That's pretty much it for what happened in Week 7. Let's take a quick look here ahead at Week 8. It's Halloween weekend. Clocks move back. Going to be all sorts of spooky stuff going on. Hopefully not for our teams. Great matchup here. We got number 1 versus number 3. The Isotopes versus Gags to Riches. Gags to Riches looking to give the Isotopes their first defeat. Some bye week problems for the Isotopes this week. Although Gags to Riches, he doesn't have Deshaun Watson, so I believe he is starting Goff instead. Not too bad there. So this one will definitely be a matchup to watch. 1 versus 3. So some Isotopes have some difficult matchups here. Hate that it's a Thursday night game for the Falcons. Hate Thursday night games. Just in general, production is usually lower than normal. But yeah, for the most part, said some bye week. No DeAndre Hopkins this week. No Chase Edmonds since Kenyon Drake is out. So this week's going to be definitely a challenge for the Isotopes. But we will see what happens if Gags to Riches is able to knock them off. And if Yinzer Jags gets a victory, they would most likely move into the first place spot here. So a lot riding on this matchup. We will see. Should be exciting. We will see what happens here. The rest of Week 8, we got Saquon versus Disco, 2 3-4s going against each other. Both teams trying to get back to 500. So that'll be good to watch. Darkwing Jut and Possum Magic, both teams are 4-3. One of you will get win number 5. Dubsy Hooligans versus Hillbillies on PCP. 3-4 versus 2-5. Hillbillies trying to get back on track. Dub C trying to get back to 500. Ed Lager versus Mighty Midgets. 11th place versus 12th place. Mighty Midgets trying to avoid loss number 7 and virtually be basically playoff elimination there. You would have to win the rest of your games from there on out. So we'll see what happens there. Can Ed Lager keep his season alive and his playoffs hopes alive? We will see. Or Mighty Midgets perhaps keep his hopes alive for one more week. And then we got Yinzer Jags going up against Shawshank Athletics, 6-1 versus 2-5. Shawshank looking to upset Yinzer Jags and avoid loss number 6, keep his playoff hopes alive, and knock Yinzer Jags back a little bit there. So several of these matchups are going to be pretty good, influential in terms of the standings here. So again, Disco and Saquon 3 and 4, both teams there. Darkwing and Possum, both teams 4 and 3. Shawshank needs to get Shawshank in a tough spot, needs to get a victory here to keep his hopes alive, and Hillbillies needs to try to turn it around against Dub C Hooligans. That'll be a good matchup too. Hillbillies doesn't want to get lost number 6 here and be on the brink of the playoffs there. So brink of the playoff window here. So those matchups are going to be really important. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, obviously we've got 11 and 12 playing each other, but in terms of playoff hopes, 5 of these 6 matchups are going to be pretty important in terms of standings and placement there. So going to be an interesting weekend, fun to watch here as we move forward. And already heading into week 8, so only 6 weeks left in the regular season. Going to be this weekend is Halloween. It'll be November here on Monday. So, Sunday, I guess, will be the first. So as we head into a big weekend here for all sorts of things going on, when I see you guys again, we will have had a presidential election. Please, God, let us have a new president. I know some of you are hardcore Republicans, but my God, how can you like this man who is the president? I don't think I could take 4 more years of this reality show clown. I understand, and I'm not going to get into it really. I understand that your political perspectives, you are who you are, you like what you like, you believe what you believe. You're going to vote for certain issues, not so much people, things like that. But my personal opinion is that anyone who votes can vote consciously choose Donald Trump over anybody else. He's the worst. He is the worst human being we have. But that's you do you. I'm praying for a change. I'm not a big Joe Biden fan. I don't like I hope Mitch McConnell loses. I hope a lot of people lose. I'm mad about this Supreme Court thing with the blatant, disgusting hypocrisy. I understand that you did the right thing. A president gets to choose and seat a Supreme Court nominee in his term. Did it fine, but you screwed it over last time, and just because it was not your own party making the choice there, this one should have been put off until later. And then from there on, there should have been some kind of rule made going forward that you can't do this anymore. This one should have made up for the last one, and no more of this BS where we're going to hold off on nominating and seating justices like this. So that's way too much stuff that you guys don't care about. Just voicing my personal opinions there, but it's gross to me that a game show host con man has seated 3 people on the Supreme Court of the United States here who will be there for years to come. But anyway, hopefully when I speak to you again, hopefully we will have I would imagine actually that we will not know for sure yet what has happened, but yeah, a lot of things happening between the time I'm speaking to you now and the time I will speak to you next. Halloween, daylight savings time, election day, all sorts of stuff. Fantasy football, the most important thing on Sunday. Hopefully all of your players meet or exceed expectations this week. Nobody gets hurt, and it's going to be a roller coaster for the next 7 days in terms of just everything in general. Hopefully we all have fun and enjoy it, and things go good. And we will see you back here again next week for the Week 8 recap. All right, guys, thank you, everyone who either watched or listened and got this far. And again, I'm sorry, Detling, for covering up. It's your fault. I don't want you, analyzing all those specific details. All my eyes, my shifting eyes, my facial features, my tics, figuring out what do you call them? Your tells in poker there. So it made me very uncomfortable. But hopefully I will be back to normal next week, which we've got, say, Detling right back here and here. And we had to move the lamp off to the side there. Man, nitpicking the scenery here. I guess I'm not boring when I talk here. So, but anyway, this is your fault. All right. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, whatever it is you do. Good luck, and we will see you back here again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.